Hey, what's up everyone? Danny here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to wrap your hands. I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different techniques that I prefer. Keep in mind that there's so many methods. If you're watching this video, more than likely you've been watching maybe half a dozen other videos on YouTube as well, and you might have your own style of wrapping your hands. I just wanted to share my opinion on it and show you guys, because I've been asked the questions many times before. Coach, crew, how do you wrap your hands? So I'm going to show you in this video 1, 2, let's do 3 methods how to wrap your hands, Coach Danny style. And we're starting right now. All right, so here we go. I have a pair of Experience hand wraps in lime green, my favorite color. Okay, so just before we talk about how to wrap your hands, it's very important. Make sure to do a little bit of finger and fist warming up on both hands, left and right side. And you can even go as far as start massaging your hands. This is what I like to do with my fighters before fights when I tape their own hands, because once the wraps are on, it's too late. Okay, so make sure before your training session, wake up your hands as such, do some opening and closing like this, make a fist, warm up your wrists slightly, circling, stretching left to right, inside and out. All right, guys, here we go. So the Velcro piece, start by the opposite end. Most hand wrap brands are gonna have a seam as such. This is the top part and the inside. You want this part, the inside of the seam, against your hand. All right, guys, so I wanna show you a different angle. So this way there, if you're at home and you're trying to copy and do it at the same time as I am, it'll give you a much better view and you can follow along. Okay, so from this angle, the first method, we're looping, making sure once again that the sewing is facing the bottom. Okay, so looping around your thumb. As a reminder, always try, I never use my hand wrap from the inside out. This is what I mean by the inside out. Always looping toward your thumb area. I always try to loop towards my pinky. So make sure that it's over your hand. See how I'm going towards the pinky side. Now I'm gonna loop 3 times. And this is very fast, right? Once you get used to it, and 3 at the knuckles. So I'm gonna go once again so you guys can follow along. So I go looping on top of my thumb, going around the wrist, once, twice, 3 times. Now I go over the thumb. So I go here, loop once. So I go over the thumb and underneath. Now I loop against the wrist once again to lock the thumb. Okay, so this will make sure I don't sprain my thumb. Now, I like to loop an extra one at the wrist. I'll start looping. Notice how I go underneath from the wrist. Now I crisscross from the inside of the hand. Crisscross going to the knuckle. Now when I go to the knuckle, I like to spread my fingers out just slightly, because if you start to hold your fingers as such, then you're gonna have a hard time. Your knuckles are gonna be all crunched and bunched up. So open your fingers and just go about midway, half point of your knuckles. And I like to loop 3 times here as well. Once I'm here, after 3 loops, I'll go and crisscross in front. Notice how I crisscross here now. Crisscross in front of the hand. And as usual, I'll lock underneath the thumb and loop around the wrist. Okay? Once I have this down, now it's time to start looping around the finger. So I go up, crisscross, and I'll use this wrap in between the pinky. Loop once around the wrist, second one into the middle finger, and then loop around the wrist, and the last one around the index, and once again loop around the wrist. Now play with your hand wrap and close your fist. This way there you know that it's not too tight, but it's also not too loose. It has to be very comfortable. Think that once your hand wrap is in and you put your 10 or 12 ounce glove into your training session, you're gonna have maybe a 45 to 60 minute workout to endure. So if it's not comfortable now, your fingers are gonna get sore. You're gonna get numb, okay? So it's important to start, as you're doing your hand wraps, to always open and close your fist like this, okay? Now, once I have this, I'll start looping against the knuckle area to close everything up. See, I want to cover those loops in between the fingers and make everything nice, okay, as such. And now, after 3 turns here as well, I'll crisscross in front and cover this area like this, right here, okay? And loop around the wrist, once again 2 or 3 times. One more crisscrossing in front of the thumb, and your hand wrap is all done. If you notice now, once I finish here, I can finish at the wrist area, And if you loop your thumb in the right direction, that means your Velcro is going to be facing up. And you have a nice, tight, firm hand wrap ready for a training session. Okay, now the second method, very quickly. It is the same method as the first one. The only difference now is we're not going to loop in between our fingers. Reason being, some people might prefer the second method more because the irritation that it might cause in between your fingers, okay? Now, we're going to go same thing, 3 times around your wrist. Notice how I'm going to go a little bit faster on this one. You guys can just rewind and watch again. Now, once I've done this, I'll actually go around the thumb. Go here 3 times. And then knuckles again 3 times. Now, because we're not crisscrossing between the fingers, we're going to end up with a much longer piece of hand wrap. So we're going to have to thicken up and loop a few more times at each area. So the areas we're focusing on is creating some padding at our knuckles, making sure we're crisscrossing on the back of the hand to support the metacarpals, and some wrist stability. Okay, so for that heavy hitting on the heavy bag tie pads, focus mitts, okay, so you don't sprain your wrist as well. Once this is done, because the hand wrap is a little bit lengthier this time, we're just going to start to loop a little bit higher on your forearm, like this, okay? Now, once again, I like to use the Mexican style hand wraps, stretchy hand wraps, stretchable material, which I prefer over 100% cotton, but that's your choice, okay? 100% cotton, once you take your gloves off to take a sip of water, the hand wrap's gonna come off every time. If you notice now, very beautiful fit. This is a beautiful made hand wrap by an amazing coach. Okay, now let's show you guys the padded method. This method resembles very much how I like to tape hands before MMA or Muay Thai fights. This is how I like to tape my fighters' hands, create some extra padding at the knuckles. You can use this using the standard hand wrap, and it's gonna create a similar effect. So maybe you guys prefer a little bit more padding on your knuckles because of a lot of training sessions, your knuckles become a little bit sore. If you notice that my fist, from this angle, every time I clench my fist, there's a slight angle right now where the bottom fingers are slightly out. So every time I punch incorrectly, this will create a lot of tension on my fingers and the metacarpals, okay? So that's why we rotate our knuckles angular in this fashion when we hit. But a lot of times, even though you want to, you might miss a few punches. And if you look at the angle right now, it's not flat. So we're gonna create a little bit more of a gap here. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take this loop and just hide this, okay? Now what's important is I use my thumb to hold it this time because it can't loop around. And I'm gonna loop 4 times with the thumb, okay? The reason why is because I want it a little bit wide. I want it a little bit wider than if it was just the 4 fingers. Once it's here, okay, I'm just gonna hold everything together. I'm gonna take my hand out just to show you guys what this does. It creates this little padded, it's almost like gauze, okay? I'm gonna use this and fold it in half, like this. Create that extra padding, okay? Once I have this, I'm gonna use my thumb once again. So it gets a little bit messy when you first start out, but you have to use it with your thumb. That's the trick. See how I loop my thumb around, okay? Because if I let go of my thumb and I go around the knuckles, I'm gonna lose the padding. So I'm gonna use that loop and go around the thumb, okay? So that's the tip. Go around, and I'm gonna go 3 times, okay? Once it's done, I just take my thumb out of there. Just take the thumb out, and now keep on adding a little bit more padding onto your knuckle area. You can adjust a little bit as needed. Okay, now once I'm here, I start going down and cover the back of my hand. Couple of turns here, and going down towards my wrist. Okay, once I'm here, I'll loop around the thumb, once again around the thumb, and back at the wrist. Always lock your wrist after one loop around your thumb, okay, to lock everything up. Once I'm here, I'll just keep on turning around the wrist, maybe 2 or 3 turns. And now, once I have this, I can start going back to the palm of the hand and back at the wrist, okay? Wrist, and then maybe one more at the palm of the hand and then back at the wrist. And now if you look, we have a little bit extra padding using this method of our hand wrap. Okay, so now you can adjust it slightly here. Sometimes if you like, you can start to work on this piece here to open up where you're going to close your fist. And if you notice now, well, the first two knuckles are aligned now for your strikes. Okay, this is a great hand wrap. Extra padding at your knuckle, extra padding for protection. And if you look at the alignment now, the surface where the two first knuckles will hit, nice and protected. Choose the method that you prefer to wrap your hands. Practice a few times at home. Watch this video over and over again, but choose a method that you feel comfortable with. And when I say comfortable, that'll depend on you during your next training session. You'll have your gloves on, doing some heavy bag, mitt work, pad work, and see after an hour session how your hands feel. Bottom line, use hand wraps to protect your wrists, to protect your fingers, and more importantly, the metacarpal bones, okay, in the front of your hands. So when you hit with maximum power, you're always protecting the tools that you're going to be using throughout, all right? Leave us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. If you find it useful, make sure to subscribe because there's more content coming your way. Until next time, guys, wrap those hands tight, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.